Hi, this is Doug Sligting, the President and CEO of Ascent Practice Growth Strategies, and I'm excited to be with you again today. For this webinar, we're going to be talking about online visibility. I'm going to go ahead and do a screen share so that we can show you my presentation and talk to you about what online visibility means. All right. So first of all, let's just go over quickly what we're going to cover today in this presentation. We're going to talk about ideal visibility, what it means and what it means in terms of attracting new patients into your practice. We're going to talk about local versus organic versus paid, meaning when you do a search online, what is local search, what is organic search, what's paid information. And then we'll go into talking about the size of your online web. It's a little analogy I have that helps me make more sense of what it means to have ideal visibility and how to gain that. And then finally, we're going to do an interactive demonstration. So if you could have your smartphone ready, as we go through this, pull out your smartphone, you'll be able to go along with me and see how Google sees your practice. Okay, so we'll have that ready for a little bit later. But let's get into ideal visibility and new patients. So first thing you have to understand with online visibility is, you can come up first in obscure searches, but it doesn't mean you have an ideal rank. Ideal ranking, when I talk about that, and when I talk about ideal online visibility, what we're really talking about is you're coming up at the very top of the page in the most important searches. That's what you want. You don't want to come up at the top. I mean, you want to come up at the top of the page in obscure searches too, but that's not ideal online visibility. It's really the most important searches. So for example, if for amalgamated fillings, you come up number one, that's great, but it's not nearly as good as coming up number one for the keyword dentist, for example. So that's what we're talking about. And let's talk about what difference it makes to come up ideally in those top rankings for a practice. So if you're coming up in that top 5% for top keywords, you can count on in most areas, in most normal traffic areas, and I'm talking traffic, I'm talking online traffic, but you're going to get about 8 to 12 new patients a month, every month, if you're just at the top 5% in those top keywords consistently. People are going to be finding you, they're going to be seeing your website, you're going to get a lot more traffic. 8 to 12 patients is pretty common. As you drop down just a little bit, just to that 6 to 10% in ranking, and really this is still kind of first page, now you're just more at the bottom or middle of the first page, that's 4 to 7 new patients. That's a huge difference. It's about half the number of patients you're going to get if you just drop down a few spots. So you can see how important it is to be in that top 5%. Once you get to 10 plus, you're on the second page or lower, you're probably not going to get any patients. And the few patients, you've got this at 0 to 3, but the few patients you do get will be for those few obscure searches when people are searching for things and you come up on, again, amalgamated filling, someone happens to need that. And that's when they will find you and choose you. And so it really makes a huge difference where you rank consistently in the top keyword searches. Practices that are ranked really well generally see a lot of new patients through search. So, and I mentioned earlier, this is for an average volume area, a practice that comes up in the 80th percentile. And I'll show you why that's average in a minute. You might think, well, wouldn't 50th be average? But we'll talk about that later as to what 80th percentile means. So before we do that, let's first just make sure we're on the same page. As I talk about and use these different industry terms for search and what Google does and what Google shows you, I want to make sure we're all on the same page. So at the very top here, this is, on the right-hand side, we've got a typical search. You do a search in Google. Well, at the very top is the paid advertising, right? Google always puts that above the map there. There's usually 1 or 2 ads and people pay to be in that spot. The next little portion here with the map attached to it, that's called local search, Google Local. And below that is organic, Google Organic. And while all three of these things affect each other, they're very different in how you appear. Obviously, the top one, you pay to be there, but even just between organic and local search, there are very different mechanisms driving why you appear well in one and why you appear well in the other. And again, even though they do affect each other, they're still different. And I'll show you a proof of that real quick. So if you actually click on that map, you click on more places, this is what comes up. You get the bigger map, you get the expanded listing. And again, you can even see at the top of this one, the top two again are ads, that's paid advertising. So Dentists of North Las Vegas would be #1 ranked. And you look at that top 5%, those are the dentists you can see on this page. That's that top 5%. That's where you want to be. As soon as you have to start scrolling to get to your practice, you start getting much more diminishing returns on your investment in online visibility. So with that said, though, if one of the things that's important to understand is what Google's ranking primarily here is your Google My Business listing. So if I click on that Dentist of North Las Vegas, it brings up their Google My Business listing. That's what's being ranked, right? In an organic search, it's ranking your website primarily and other things. And so when we talk about Google Local, we're really talking about ranking that Google My Business listing in conjunction with your website, your social media, and other things. And I'll talk about that in a moment. But the primary driver is that listing that Google has. And in fact, if I pull up a search on the same day, you'll notice that in the organic listings, there really isn't a ton of correlation. Only one dentist comes up in the top in both areas. And so, it's obviously a different set of drivers driving what's helping you to rank in organic versus local. That's important to understand as you work with the company, because organic, while again important, is not nearly as important as local. That's where the vast majority of all people search for a dentist. And the main reason is, you can see, it's those reviews. People don't like to search for local businesses if they can't read reviews anymore. And so very, very few people go to organic. They like to go to the ones by the map, see the reviews, see where it is compared to them. Helps them make a better and more informed, or at least they feel more trustworthy choice. Okay, so what determines your Google rank? And the way I like to think about this, the analogy I've come up with is thinking of it as like a spider web, okay? The size of your web compared to your competitors is going to determine where Google ranks you. So you have your spider web you're building, and if your web is small compared to your competitors, you're not going to catch as many flies, so to speak. So how do you build a bigger web, right? You want your web to be bigger. And the reason I like to compare it to a web is because there's no one thing online that's just the key. There's lots of things. Everything online that represents your company or your product, your service, et cetera, is connected together like a web. And the more you have out there, the more Google can see, the better it is. The more they like it, the more they want to promote it, the more they're going to try to rank you above the others. So if they notice one company has very little online presence and the other one has a lot more, it's got a bigger web, they're going to rank the one with the bigger web over the one with the smaller web. So there's three primary factors that make up your web. One of them is online content. And when I talk about online content, these are things like keywords on your website, keywords in your social media, keywords in a blog or video page, keywords in how you, basically anything that you can find that deals with your business online, including your Google My Business page, right? These are links from different pages to each other. So if you're linking your Google My Business to your website, that's a good link. And Google likes that. Or if you're linking your social media to your website and vice versa. Metadata, that's how you build your website. The words you use to describe the content of your website. Those aren't things that humans can see, but Google can see it. It's the programming and building of the website. It's everything that really deals with your website, all the content. For example, if you use the word Invisalign a lot and you want to promote Invisalign, and you use it all over the place on your website, on your Google My Business page, and your social media, Google will see that. It'll see all that content, and that will help create a bigger web for that keyword. and Google will promote that above people with smaller webs for that keyword. Additionally, traffic, how many people are visiting all this content you've put on there. You could have a ton of great content, but if no one's visiting it, Google can see that, and they know that people don't really care about your content. They're not going to promote that over other people. That also builds a bigger web. And you can falsely increase, and it's not falsely, but basically by running ads, and Google ads specifically, that creates more traffic, and Google can see that traffic, and it inflates your traffic, even though you've paid to have that done. That's why falsely, it's not genuine traffic people are finding. The other way, obviously, is the higher you rank, the more traffic you get. And so it kind of keeps you in that spot once you've been able to move up into that spot because you're getting more traffic. Also, reviews. Reviews are super critical, and specifically Google reviews. Google doesn't want to promote businesses above, so a business with very few reviews above a business with a ton of reviews, and so they like you to have a lot of reviews and good reviews. And so it's really the combination of these three things: great content, a lot of traffic, a lot of reviews, right? These things are what Google determines how they rank you. And you might, have someone with fewer reviews than you ranked above you, but it just means they're getting more traffic, they have better content, etc. And vice versa. You might have the most reviews, but you might not have great content. And so it's the ability to work in all three of these areas that creates a bigger web and expand that. And so I want to show you how this works. You start with the competitive area score. And when you look at that competitive area score, so really rural areas, you don't have to do much to rank well, right? That's a low competitive area score. However, if you're in a super competitive area, lots of dentists employing lots of sophisticated strategy to rank well, you could be at the highest end of the spectrum. Sometimes you think about like certain places in Manhattan or just outside of Houston, super competitive. Really competitive areas. Every dentist falls somewhere on that spectrum, right? But the higher you are on that spectrum, the more competitive your area is, the more effort you have to put in to rank above others, the bigger your web has to be. Additionally, the more sophisticated your online effort has to be. You can't employ one-size-fits-all strategies as it gets more and more competitive. Eventually, things have to be done fairly unique for your location. And also the cost goes up because putting more effort in, adding more sophistication almost always adds cost. So it gets more expensive to rank really well in highly competitive areas. The other thing you have to understand is I've got this gray line going up evenly across the board, but that's not how it works. You don't have dentists evenly in 1% to 100%. It's actually more of a bell curve. Most of the dentists in the country fall within around this 80 percentile. Most dentists are from about 70 to 90 percentile in competitive score and require a high level of effort. There's not a ton of dentists in that 100%, very few dentists in the 1%, and it really builds up around that 80th percentile. The problem we've seen though is because we analyze, and we'll be able to do this for you in just a minute when we run the assessment. Most practices buy one-size-fits-all solutions that are geared towards about that 50, 60 percentile, right? They work really well for anyone there or below. In fact, they build that web that allows them to compete in that area, when what they really need is a web that's much bigger. They need a much stronger, much more sophisticated effort in order to compete and really be in that ideal top 5 percentile in search. And so another thing to understand too is every marketing company out there has a limit on how big a web they can build. And when you're buying cheaper, again, kind of prepackaged one-size-fits-all solutions, they only have the capacity to build a web so big for you. And so you need to look for partners. And this is what Ascent does, is we focus on the ability to build as big a web as we need to, all the way up to 100%, and to add products and services and sophistication and content and do things and strategies that allow you to build that bigger and bigger web depending on where you are, so that we can move you up into that proper place. So hopefully that makes it clear on, because we deal with practices all the time that have been, almost every practice that exists is paying somebody to go out and do SEO or search engine optimization for them and to help them be found online. But the reality is most practices really aren't in that top 5%. I mean, most can't be, right? You only have 5%. And so you need to look at, well, what do I need to do in my area? And it's guaranteed, if you're in a more competitive area, those practices in the top 5% are doing a very sophisticated effort and a bigger effort than you to get there. Okay, I promised you that we were going to do an assessment on your practice. If I've got on my screen web address insight.ascentpgs.com. So go ahead and pull out your phone and go to insight.ascentpgs.com. I'm going to do that with you here. So let me share a different screen. Okay, so now you should come to here, insight.ascentpgs.com. You'll see this interactive analysis. Now, you don't have to worry. We're not going to be asking for personal information. All we need to do with this is find your Google My Business listing. And to do that, we simply need to add in your zip code. I'm going to do my local zip code. And then you need to add in your practice name. So I'll just do a local dentist here. And then you pick your type of practice. So if you're a general dentist or a specialist, you can pick that and then click Find Your Listing. And what it's going to do is it's going to locate your official Google My Business listing. And mine appeared right here, the one I was searching for. You just select that and then say gather data and design your plan. Now, before I click on this, just quickly explain what's going to happen, because it happens kind of fast. This is going to send out a bunch of search queries to Google. And it's going to gather information directly from Google Local, Google Organic. We're going to get information from different public data aggregates on pay-per-click information and other things too, okay? And it'll pull that and it'll give us some reporting that's all from Google. This isn't from our company or anything like that. That'll show you how you rank for top keywords. So it's really worth doing. So I'm going to go ahead and hit gather your data. You can see now it's going through, it's pulling information from Google and Google Local, Google Reviews, I forgot about that one, Google Ads. And now it's taking all that, customizing the information, and then adding recommendations based on what we found. So if you've run that with me, you should be at a point where you come to this screen. You've got online growth and profit. In my other webinar I just did last week, I talked about growth. Today, we're going to focus on online. Now, quick note, if you didn't see the other webinar, I recommend watching that. You can learn more about these growth campaigns and that data. Today, we're not going to be talking about profitability mechanisms either. If you're interested in that, you can go there later, look at those different profitability mechanisms. But today, we're going to be focusing with online. And we're going to, so go ahead and click Start with Online. And it'll bring you to a screen here. It'll show you some information on your practice. So first of all, this dentist overall, when you look at his overall online visibility, is average. It's not quite ideal. It's not doing too poorly in his overall visibility rank. And I'll go into the details in that in a minute. He's doing 8, but that means there's 7 practices easier to find. So he's kind of on that fringe of that top 5% in terms of being able to be found. One of the things that's really hurting him though is his reviews rank is 21st overall. So there's 20 practices with more reviews than him. And that's probably one of the reasons he's not pushed up even higher than number 8. And you can tell this practice is in the 73rd percentile. It's like I said, most of you will be between about 70 to 90%. This one's about 73 percentile. So pretty competitive, not the most competitive, but pretty competitive. And that's for this zip code. If we scroll down, go ahead and just scroll down, you can look at some of the details I'll go through. But you can see who his top 5 competitors are in his area. Riverton Dental, Riverton Heights, etc. They rank number 1. So Riverton Dental, on average, comes up the highest out of all his competitors. And they're being found the most in the top keyword searches. And you can see this little graph, each dot on here, it's kind of small, but each dot, you can probably see it on your phone a little better, represents a competitor that you're dealing with, and you can see where you rank. And you really want to be as high up and to the right as you can, ideally in the white space. And again, he's kind of right on that edge, doing pretty well. Could do better, especially with certain keywords. In fact, if we scroll down, you can see the most important keyword, dentist, he's actually coming up 14th. For the word dental, 14th, dental office, 10th, and so forth. And so it shows a few of the keywords where he's actually ranking in Google. Doing really well for best dentist. That one's really, really good. And then you scroll down a little more, and this shows, in my opinion, where his biggest weakness in this area is, and that's in his reviews rating. He's got pretty good rating. He's 4.9 stars, but just does not have enough reviews. He's not generating enough reviews to be really with those top competitors. And so that would be very helpful for him to generate more reviews to push him up those rankings. So hopefully you've looked at yours. You've seen where you rank. If you're doing well, that's great. The key then is to keep that ranking. If you came up and you're not doing very well, you don't have an ideal rating here up at the top, then what can you do? And so from here, go ahead and click continue, and you're given 3 choices. If you would like to improve from where you are, you can check that box. If you're actually doing well, or you're not doing well, but you don't care too much, you can just maintain where you're at. Or you're someone who just, hey, I just want to save as much money as possible. I don't care where I rank. You can even click on that, and we can show you how to just save money on that. But for this case, obviously, we're going to try to see what he needs to do to improve. So I'm going to click I'd like to improve, and then we'll click continue. And what it'll show him is the products recommended to get him to move up to a more ideal spot, just from 8th, up into the top 5 generally. And so it recommends an essential website, essential SEO, and then obviously review generation. And we know that if we can implement the way we build our websites, the way we do SEO, we're really good at it. And then also some of the review generation that we do, which is really good as well. We know we're going to be able to drive that up and move him up in the rankings. And as a result of that, we're going to be estimating that he's going to, based on the amount of traffic in his area, it's a little lower. Again, his was 73rd percentile. We're looking at about 5 to 7 new patients a month, which would generate on average about 6,000. If we're assuming 6 patients, we average that out, $1,000 per patient, minus our costs, or the cost that he's paying to have this done, he'd get about $5,000 in ROI per month for this. And we'll be able to track that and know if that's actually happening. We'll know how many patients he's getting as we track patients who come through search and come through the internet. So we have other products we can offer and so forth. But a couple of things. One, if you'd like to make these recommendations more accurate, you can actually click on this little question mark by ROI. It explains how we're calculating the ROI, and you can even have it calculate your specific new patient amount, what your annual per patient value is. So for example, let's say over the last 12 months, you saw 1,200 new patients, and your gross revenue for that same time period was $900,000. Then your per patient value is about $750 per patient. If I click enter, then it changes the values here to match your actual per patient value. And this would still be a really good investment for River City Dental, at 34.43 ROI. That'd be really good for what they're getting in terms of new patients and the consistent growth through that. Now, if you want to actually purchase these products, you can simply add them to your cart, and doing so starts to add the totals. Again, you can add growth products, profit products. But in this case, just want to show you one last thing. When you come into the shopping cart, you can see the monthly total due is $1,057 for those 3 products. Again, we show you about the ROI you're going to get, how many patients you're going to get, and you can then check out and purchase this with the credit card. However, you can also save this plan. If you want to come back and look at it later, or look at the growth products like I talked about, or the profitability products like I talked about, you can just save this, just enter your name, first name, last name, email address. It'll send you a link, and then you can just come back to it at any time to play with it, or look at the other products or whatever. So that's how that works. Hopefully that was that was great for you to be able to see, not only where you rank, but the products that are going to help you improve your ranking, how much they cost, how much it'll probably get for you each month. And again, one thing to keep in mind with these projections, they're not just pie in the sky numbers to get you to buy. We're going to be tracking these things, and if we can't hit the projections, you can always cancel. And the way we've set up our systems, it's all on subscriptions, and you can cancel anytime with 30 days notice. So with that in mind, let's go back to my presentation and just talk about tracking afterwards. Let's say you decide, yeah, hey, I'd love to improve my online visibility. You start working with this, you purchase these products. How do we know if it's working? That's the key. So let me push play on that. So it's really about your reporting, and how do we know that, and the reporting needs to be able to show that this is working. So first of all, one of the nice things that we do, which I don't know anyone else who does this, is we track your data based on the same keywords, same top keywords every month. And we look at where your overall visibility is. And just to contrast that as to how most people do it, is they show you, hundreds of keywords and kind of you move them up and down in all of them. Again, most of them aren't even searched in your area, right? So what we're looking for, where do you come up in those top most searched keywords every month? And we narrow that down to a handful of keywords that are the most important ones, and then track those every month and then show you where you average out with those compared to your competition. So you can see in this example I have on screen, they started out on the left-hand side there, and they dropped a little bit, and then we moved them up and kind of held them just at that top, near the top spot for the last several months. They originally started at number 7. Now we've got them about number 3 or 4. Right. We also show you on the graph kind of where you are compared to your competitors. And I guess at this point it's number 4, as you can tell there. We're also going to show you who your top competitors are and kind of compare you to where they are compared to where you are, show that the average rank where they come up versus the average rank where you come up. We're going to show you things like all the Google My Business clicks, and whether you're generating more or less traffic, your website clicks, all sorts of data, things I'm not even showing on here. But we're also going to look at organic keywords. And what we do, again, that's nice, is we do show you which keywords you're going up and down in. However, these are the ones that are actually searched in your area. We don't show you the ones that aren't searched each month, so we'll show you what's actually searched. And reporting this way, and again, it's different than how most people do it, holds us to a higher standard. It forces us to have a product that actually works. Because if we're going to be showing you every month kind of where you are in those top keywords and top searches and compare apples to apples every month, we have to be able to deliver. And you'll know pretty easily whether it's working or not, just based on the reporting that you can see each month. So with that, let's go ahead and just wrap up here. Hopefully that was helpful for you in understanding how online visibility works, where you sit in terms of your online visibility, the solutions needed in order to improve your online visibility, and then how we can report and make sure that things are working on an ongoing basis, so you're getting those patients from search that you can get in your area. Again, one thing to keep in mind, why we're different, is we assess better, as you hopefully just saw through that assessment. We are on subscription-based marketing, which means you can cancel anytime. We have to put up, or you can leave. If we can't deliver what we promise, you should leave. But we're going to work really hard to make sure that we're doing exactly what we promised. And then our ongoing reporting is just, it holds us to a higher standard. It shows you more clarity in terms of where you rank and what's going to happen. So hopefully that was helpful, and we look forward to talking with you again. Thanks.